Buenos dias. So, do you ever sit down to do some work and then find yourself scrolling through your social feed or watching videos on YouTube or just going between tabs on your browser when you really intended to sit down and do some work? If you're like me, this happens from time to time. And this video is about what you can do about that and some possible approaches you can use to do something else. So, I think some people are naturally kind of wired for a high level of focus. And with some folks, whether you're been diagnosed as ADHD or if you just kind of resonate with the symptoms of that, you know, your brain may not work exactly the same way as somebody who sits down and does work. So I'm assuming if you're watching this, you may be in that latter camp. And hopefully some of the tips that I'll describe here will be useful for you. I think the place to start is with whatever you're intending and then noticing what's happening in that moment. So in a certain respect, a lot of what I'm talking about is taking a mindful approach at what happens and not judging it, but just taking it as data. It's, okay, I sat down to work and then my attention went somewhere else. So really getting curious in those moments and beginning to kind of document for yourself what happens in those moments when you sit down to work. And I think it's easy to, have a simple description of, well, I sit down to work and then I find myself on social, but really slowing that moment down and noticing what's going on internally for you. When you sit down to work, is there a thought that's bringing you to something else? Or is there a discomfort that's getting you to do something else? Or does something catch your attention? It's the shiny object syndrome, and that pulls you away somewhere else. So I think that's the first step, is to get very mindful about those moments and learn your patterns of how you experience what you might be labeling as distraction or lack of focus. The second thing that I would recommend is when you sit down to do work, really ask in a very honest way, what is it that I'm wanting in this moment? Now, sure, we all want to sit down and do some work, but I think there's wanting to have work done and then really wanting to do the work. And those are two very different things. Sure, if I have an assignment for one of my clients and I may want to have that work done, but whether I really want to do the work is a different question. And also, it's not just the part of me that wants that work done, but the part of me that tends to distraction. What does that part want? It may have a very different opinion about how you should be spending your time and engaging your attention. If we slow things down, you may notice that there are 2 or 3 or a half dozen different wants that are in that moment out of alignment. I also notice that I think at times we're expecting perhaps too much of ourselves. We're expecting that we can sit down in a moment, say, okay, it's time to work, I'm going to work. And that may not be practical. That would be like sitting down at a random time of the day and saying, be hungry and eat. Whether or not you just ate, or whether it's a time of day when you feel alert and ready, to do whatever it is that you want to do. Sometimes we need a ritual to bring us into that activity. I feel that, when people often have difficulty sleeping, it's the same thing. In today's society, people want things immediately. They want to be able to go to their bed and fall asleep immediately. Whereas sometimes there needs to be an on-ramp, there needs to be a ritual or a progression that gets you into that moment. That's why I know some people that describe what they're doing as procrastinating, when in fact what they're actually doing is preparing to work. Some people will tidy up their desk or organize their material, and it's actually you could look at it as a form of procrastination, but you could also look at it as a ritual of preparedness to kind of focus their mind and get ready to sit down and work. Um, in terms of having multiple impulses, I think it's really important and useful to honor each of these different parts. So really honoring the part of you that wants to do some meaningful work and honoring the part of you that wants distraction and wants to indulge. And if we can get these two aspects of ourselves working together, we can actually get more of both. You know, I find when I'm distracting myself from my work, I'm not really getting the satisfaction from the distraction that I might if I really had full permission to be distracted. So here's a little exercise you can do to, honor both parts, besides dialoguing between the parts. The first is to practice a very short period of focus, and then allow a similar amount of time of intentional distraction. So it might be setting a timer for 5 minutes and saying, for 5 minutes, I am going to focus on this one task without distraction. And then for 5 minutes, I'm going to let myself indulge in any way that I want, completely guilt-free, and practice moving back and forth between the two so that your system gets used to focusing and then gets used to kind of being free and exploring. If you think through your experience, there are moments when you are focused. Everybody has moments of focus. Usually it's when we're doing something that we congruently want to do, where we're completely on board. If you ask your typical person, can you watch a movie without distraction? Most people say yes, if they really want to watch the movie. So practice going back and forth, between focus times and intentional distraction. So to recap, the first thing we want to do is slow down the moments when we feel like we're getting derailed and noticing, okay, what is it that's pulling us away? And then noticing all the different wants that are alive in us and working to get an alignment across those different wants. And then practicing intentional moments of focus and intentional moments of distraction, and really allowing yourself to indulge in whatever it is that you might like, so that everybody on our internal team feels properly honored. And I think you'll find wonderful discoveries in these moments of distraction, because they're actually purposeful. They're meaningful to a certain aspect of ourselves. So I would encourage you to practice that movement back and forth. And also I have a couple other videos that I will link at the end on a similar topic about working within distraction.